There are staggering new statistics on homelessness in Los Angeles.
By one estimate, nearly 50,000 veterans will experience homelessness each year.
The city of Denver is struggling to find a permanent home for a tiny home village that supports the homeless.
Homelessness in Los Angeles has hit a new high.
Our goal is to help foster a culture of responsibility, good citizenship among our peers. We are learning how an idea leads to action, and in turn, action leads to change. Our inspiration for our Imagine That project came from our middle school service learning club, which is very active with local and regional civic programs for people within our community who are homeless. We were informed that the Imagine That theme this year is patterns. We decided to do a short video that deals with the social patterns that impact homelessness.
We have identified the 5 main factors that impact homelessness and have interviewed individuals who are leaders within each segment of their industries under the categories lack of affordable housing, unemployment, medical topics, poverty, and education. The people we've talked to have the reachability to positively affect change and have jobs which relate to the patterns of homelessness. These are experts in their field who are well versed on the subject.
Our first question is, a study titled Early Reading Skills and Academic Achievement Trajectories of Students Facing Poverty, Homelessness, and High Residential Mobility states that from an early age, reading ability can be a prognostic of a student's educational growth. It was shown that many who were at the highest risk did not have homes. How can we help these students in their education so that they have more opportunities to grow and have proactive skills that will help them succeed?
Well, this is a terrific question, by the way, and a very difficult one. I think from my perspective, one of the most important things we can do for all of our children, but particularly the ones that you're mentioning here, is to make sure that we're providing strong reading skills. There's a lot of studies out there that if kids can't read by the 3rd grade, they are in for a lot of trouble later on, whether it's prison, whether it's dropout of high school. So I think what the most important thing that we can do is we can't solve all of these social issues as a school, but we can help make sure that when they are in our school, they're loved, they're cared for, and they're focused on reading, especially phonetical reading, because a lot of times these families don't have a lot of books or a lot of resources at their home. And so we have to go back to the basics and making sure that we're figuring out where the reading levels are, and then making sure that we're providing as much reading effort and intervention that we can.
Okay, thank you.
Well,
Another question that we have for you is, today's youth is expected to be career ready. However, the tools and opportunities that are required to be career ready are not fairly supplied to everyone. How would we make it so that everyone has necessary tools to find a job that they will be able to support themselves through?
Well, I think career ready is a loaded word, right? I mean, I think what we're trying to do as a school, at least in Imagine, is to try to provide everything that you need for your goals and for your aspirations. And so there's a study done by Google, I think, that 8 out of the 10 skills that employers are looking for right now for jobs have nothing to do with cognitive skills, but they're actually dealing with soft skills. So one of the most important things we can do to get people ready for career ready is to teach them how to work in cooperative groups, how to work in teams, how to do projects like this, how to do presentations, how to make interviews like you're doing. If we can give them those soft skills and sort of unlock their curiosity, it'll allow them to actually apply all of those skills to any job that they want, to any career that they want, or if they want to go to college, that's another option for them as well.
Okay. Another one that we have is, studies have shown a relationship between school dropout rates and unemployment. Many other studies have shown a correlation between high rates of unemployment and homelessness. As a school leader, how is the company Imagine Schools able to positively impact students to continue their education?
Well, for me, it starts absolutely with love and relationships. Every kid needs to feel like that some adult in their life loves them, cares for them, believes in them. And then it starts with trying to convince the student that there is a why. Why are they in school? Why is it important to them? Why is it significant that they learn? And part of that will be showing them data, giving them ownership of their education, and also helping kids find their purpose in life. Sometimes we have this idea that somehow we're going to decide that for you, but we have to walk side by side with you to try to figure out what your purpose is. But it has to start with love and relationships, and that's the most important thing.
Okay. Thank you so much for helping us understand our connection between lack of education and homelessness, Mr. Barney.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for your time.
So I just have a couple of questions to ask you, if that's okay. Are there homeless shelters or transitional housing options in Plantation? And what plans are in place if the demands for shelters is greater than the supply? As a city, what are we doing to combat this issue?
So there are currently no homeless shelters or transitional housing within Plantation. I'm excited to tell you today that the City of Plantation, through our police force, what they've done is they've implemented in the last 4 to 5 years a task force and outreach. So we have a detective, Detective Lori Graper, who is in charge of that. And what they've done is she has 6 officers underneath her, so that on each shift, whether it's the day shift or the nighttime shift, there's at least 2 officers that are out there in the City of Plantation on patrol that have had advanced training. So if there is someone that's homeless, they can go out there, they can assess them, and then they can get them the social services that they need. Because we found, municipalities have found, arresting people because they're homeless doesn't solve the problem. It doesn't get to the root, causes, and it doesn't get them help. And I think that what's happened in a lot of municipalities is they're finding that it takes more money, taxpayer money, to go through that process, arresting them, and they're just back out on the street. So we really need to look at it as a humanitarian issue. And I'm thrilled that City of Plantation's been at the forefront of that. And there's a multi-agency task force, MET, and they've partnered with other municipalities in this effort, so that they're all working together to help solve the problem.
Okay, thank you. So I know that there are certain things that cities do, such as like giving out motel vouchers and referrals to other shelters because Plantation doesn't have traditional housing options. So how are people that are homeless because they don't have the amount of money to have ride services or to have a car, how do you think that they would get there if we have those options?
We'll talk about the motel vouchers. There really isn't any money for the motel vouchers. And speaking of our police department, several of our officers have taken money out of their own pockets. If there's a situation where they need to get someone to social services, and say it's an evening situation and they need to get somebody into a safe place, especially if it's a reunification of a family, they've taken money out of their own pockets. So through this multi-agency task force, what I'm excited about is they are very close to becoming a nonprofit 501c3. And what they're looking to do is get funding and have at least $10,000 there so that they can start to offer vouchers. Obviously, there would be a short term there because you don't want someone to keep abusing it.
Yeah.
And if they really do want to get help, then they can get them into short-term housing and they get them to the agency that can best help them.
Thank you for taking time out of your day.
Oh, it was my pleasure.
Just to talk about the social patterns that impact homelessness, I really want to thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you for doing this.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
As an industry, what are pharmaceutical companies doing to make necessary medications affordable?
I think you're going to end up with a model that is more transparent, with fewer back-end rebates and more value-driven up to the point of sale for consumers. And I think that is just one of what will be 2 or 3-pronged approach to really trying to alleviate some of the unsustainable healthcare costs in the country. I think the second big one, and from my perspective, one that's really important and probably more pertinent relative to the homeless population, is the topic of compliance and adherence. The homeless in this country, it is like a systemic issue. I compare it to like smoking, in that if you're homeless, you are so much more at risk for so many ancillary issues down the line because you don't have stable housing. And so when I compare it to smoking, it's like if you smoke, if you look at some of the clinical studies, if you're a smoker, you end up subjecting yourself to a whole host of downstream issues. So I think when you look at the compliance and adherence issue, to me, that's where we're focused as an organization, which is how do we identify these folks? How do we make sure they have the proper medication? And then how do we make sure that they stay on those therapies and those regimens? So I don't think there's one particular answer in terms of lowering and addressing unsustainable healthcare costs. I think it's a multiple pronged approach, and I think you're going to see that take place here over probably the
Okay, thank you. Another question I have for you is, many people are forced to choose between paying for their living expenses or paying for their medical expenses. As a member of the pharmaceutical industry, how can you ensure that the people who are in this situation no longer have to make that choice?
So I think the answer to that is we need to identify these people early. We need to make sure that they're in the system, and we need to make sure that we can track them through the system. And that candidly is the biggest challenge for us. It's not only identifying them and making sure that they have the resources that they need from some of the safety net programs, but then we can then keep track of them.
Many people feel that homelessness needs to be addressed on a federal, state, and local level. As a city, what are we doing to solve this issue?
The funds for homeless outreach programs comes from the federal government down to the county level. That is not extended to any city. Cities do not budget or vote on any social issues, which is why all elections within the city are considered nonpartisan.
The county has what is called the Continuum of Care Board, and part of that board decision-making is allocating funds that do come down from the federal government through the Housing and Urban Development mainly, and for the disbursement of those funds. The county has also established through law enforcement what's called the Broward County Multi-Agency Homeless Task Force, or MAT for short. We do have a very strong voice on the Continuum of Care Board and have partnered with local government agencies and also private entities, nonprofit organizations, hospitals, mental health, facilities such as BARC, Henderson Mental Health. And what we as law enforcement have done on our local level is established teams of specially trained officers who can partner with the Task Force for Ending Homelessness, which is the county appointed task force to put placement in to facilities and offer housing assistance, job placement. So we do partner with them often, and each city, specifically Plantation, we have a team of 6 and I'm the 7th, the administrator, and we can meet each person's individualized needs and tailor outreach for their specific needs.
When we started, we looked at different patterns that impact homelessness, from education, lack of affordable housing, and poverty to mental illness and unemployment. We spoke with leaders on the subjects and were able to gather valuable input on these patterns and why homelessness occurs and is in a cycle of existence.
First, we went to Jason Bryant, the CEO of Imagine Schools. With him, we learned how education is very impactful and crucial in finding a career and how often the lack of education ties to homelessness.
This shows how education is a key factor in preparedness and success. Additionally, we discussed how students and educators should work together to help students find their path to keep them from dropping out.
He explained how schools should work with kids from a young age to excel and stay on a good path.
Denise Horland talked with us on the lack of affordable housing using her knowledge as a city councilwoman in our city.
She talked about organizations that have been successful and helped many people. She explained how they have a different approach that works better for the people who need the service. She discussed how things are changing and we're realizing how we need to change with it.
For instance, when she brought up services that recommend transitional housing that doesn't require information that these people do not have.
Then we went to Mike Weissel, Chief Executive Officer of Care Pharmacies. He spoke on how drug costs and medical systems are set up and how they should be developed to help this sector of society who needs help. He broke down the multitude of factors that influence pharmaceutical drug costs and gave insight as to how the industry is changing and needs to change along with developing problems and finding solutions.
Finally, we spoke with the mayor of Plantation, Lynn Stoner, and Detective Graber from the Plantation Police Department. They talked about the pressing issue within our city and county.
In all, we have gathered expert views on the patterns we see in society that impact homelessness.
In our project, we have learned a lot about the social patterns that impact homelessness. We gained more information about how these patterns relate to the way the cycle of homelessness begins and the many different reasons that cause this. The factors we found that impact homelessness are pharmaceutical needs, poverty, education, and unemployment. This information has improved our understanding of this major problem that has been a problem in our society for a long time. As a class, we can work to change more about the social patterns that impact homelessness.
During this project, we've learned how us as a society can impact the patterns of homelessness. In our research, we collected that in San Francisco, they took a movable shack so that someone that is homeless can live in it and be able to move it whenever they need to. Now, for us, we can do something similar to San Francisco and make a place for people that are homeless to live. We can have citywide fundraisers in order to raise the money we need to make this happen. For example, we were discussing that we could use an empty parking lot that no one is using as a place for people that live in their cars to sleep from 9 p.m. to 6 a.m. and hire 2 security guards to watch over the parking lot all night to keep it safe.
And what can you do to break the patterns of homelessness?